fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I'm Marissa, and today I am in a very different location, as you may notice. The lighting might be atrocious, but this is my absolute favorite reading spot, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I'm actually at my parents' house in the living room, and this is my favorite reading chair, along with my favorite reading companion. This is Desi. Desi, look at the camera. Or don't. Okay, she's mad at me. I'm just going to leave her alone, and instead, I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about annotations. So lately, I've been watching a bunch of really inspiring booktube videos about annotations and about why people annotate and how people annotate. And I'm a huge fan of annotations. I think there's just something really special about engaging with the text through annotations and writing your own comments in there and finding other comments that previous readers have left there for you to find. And I mean, annotations are our way of engaging with the text and making the text come alive for us and communicating with both the author and future readers. I think the earliest experience that I had with annotations was this book of love poems by Emily Dickinson. I think I've actually discussed this on my channel before, and I'll leave the link up above to that video. But I bring it up because I got it at a library sale, and it has an inscription in the front. It says, "To Mark, I hope these will remind you of me. Always know that I miss you and love you. Christina, June 1980. P.S. I've marked my favorites." And she has marked her favorites. She marks some of them with 1 star and some of them with 2 stars, like you can see here. And one of my favorite parts of reading these poems now is to try and figure out why these were her favorites. What is it about these that are noteworthy to Christina? And do these have some special meaning to her relationship with this Mark person? I just love thinking about stuff like that. But I think the book that has been most inspiring for me in terms of this concept of being able to commune through time with others who've interacted with our texts and annotations in general, and just the concept of actively being involved in a piece of literature is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. So I started reading this a while ago now, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I've been reading it painfully slowly, despite how much I'm enjoying it. I'm only, I think, about on page 40, and as I said, that's not because I dislike it. I actually started the book in a coffee shop, which if you've read the book, you'll understand how perfect that is, because one of the characters actively writes her portion from a French-themed coffee shop in Japan. And since then, I've only been reading it in cafes. That, compounded with the amount of rereading and annotations that I make per page, has turned this into perhaps my slowest read ever. I think it may take me all year to read at this rate, but it's because I love it so much that I never want the experience to end. This book takes annotations to a whole nother level. There are so many layers of text. There's the narrative of Now, a 16-year-old girl who's writing in her journal, and there's the narrative of Nao's 104-year-old Buddhist Zen grandmother who she writes about. And in fact, the reason that Nao gives for writing the journal in the first place is that she wants to share the story of her grandmother. And then there's also the narrative of Ruth, who finds Nao's journal washed up on the shore of an entirely different continent. So we see Ruth's interpretations of Nao, and she actually annotates Nao's journal in her own way. She looks up Japanese references and writes her own commentary in the form of footnotes that we can read in Nao's sections. So we can see Ruth's interpretations of Nao and Nao's work, and then there's even this other layer of meaning, which is that Nao's journal itself is a refurbished version of Proust's book In Search of Lost Time, or the French, which I cannot pronounce because I speak absolutely no French whatsoever, but I will put it down below for those of you who are familiar with French and familiar with this work. But Nao's journal is one of those old books where an artist has sort of gutted the original text and replaced it with blank pages. So this entire book, in a sense, is a full revision and rethinking of the past. Both the artist and Nao revamp Proust's work, and Nao retells her grandmother's story in her own words. Ruth gives her commentary on Nao's experiences in her journal. And then, of course, there's us as the reader, making sense of all these layers and imparting our own perspectives and opinions onto the text. And I feel like by adding my annotations to this book, that I'm actually contributing to this work as well, that I'm continuing to tell the story and revise and revamp it like all of the characters in the text itself. I've thought of this concept before when interacting with texts, but this book takes it to a whole nother level. I've never felt as engaged or as invested while annotating as I have been with this book. And it's made me take a hard look at the way that I'm annotating and engaging with books and what that means for my reading experience as a whole. I've been annotating books myself since undergrad. I used to write in the margins and dog-ear any pages that were important to me and that would possibly be worthwhile for future essays. And then when it came time to write an essay, I'd spend hours rereading the dog-eared pages and thinking about them. I love doing that, and it was wonderful that while I was in school, I had the time to reread so much and to really contemplate certain passages. But I've been out of school for a while now, so I feel like I need to change my annotation style now that I just don't have the time to revisit all of my books like that. I still write in the margins and I use post-it notes, but I rarely go back and reread the things that I write. So I've been trying journals lately. I still write in the margins and I still use the post-it notes, but I've also been writing these things in a journal that I want to share in future videos with you guys. I'm just not sure that's working for me either. I don't always write everything that I want to in the journal, and sometimes I don't even go back to that at all. So the whole process is still rather time-consuming in my opinion, and I'm still working on finding a way to annotate that makes the reading experience richer for me and doesn't take an eternity. Another annotation issue that I struggle with is annotating library books. I take out a lot of library books, as you can tell by my recent library hauls, and of course I don't annotate them because that is generally not acceptable to write in a library book. Sometimes I add post-its and try to copy down what I write on them later in a journal. And that's helpful, but it's also really time-consuming, and I don't always want to do that, especially if it's due back to the library very soon. At the same time, I worry that I get less meaning out of books if I can't annotate them, or if I just don't spend enough time really contemplating the annotations. I worry that if a book I end up really caring about comes from the library, I'm losing something and missing out on what could have been an even more meaningful reading experience. But at the same time, I mean, I love the library. I like that I can be so spontaneous with my book selections, that everything there is free, of course, and I don't want to purchase all my books because, one, that would be very costly, and also because I want the books in my personal library to have special stories. I don't need to own every single book that I've ever read, and I wonder if I should be annotating every book I read, and if not, how would I decide which books don't need to be annotated? So I know that some of you have been making videos on annotations. I'm specifically thinking of Jasmine from Novel Thoughts. She made a fantastic video all about annotating and how she color codes her post-its, and she mentioned how she gets around the issue of library books with larger post-its that she can write on as well. I don't know if the color coding thing would really work for me though. I think I get too bogged down in the colors, and I'd worry that they distract me from the text itself. But of course I'll link her video down below because it's fantastic and I think you should all check it out. So anyway, I'm curious, what do you guys think about annotations? Do you even like annotating? And if so, do you annotate everything you read? What kinds of things do you like to write about in the margins? I know some people are very emotional with their comments and write exclamation points and colloquial things like, I can't believe she said that. And then other people write more analytic things maybe, I don't know. Do you have any new annotation methods for me that maybe I haven't heard of? And how do you deal with the issue of annotating library books? Sorry, that was a ton of questions, but I'd really like to know what you think of them, and if you want to write paragraphs of comments or make your own response video, I would not mind at all, because this is genuinely something that I find fascinating and it could probably be discussed for a lot longer. But I think I've discussed it enough for today, so until next time, Happy reading and happy annotating. Bye!